Okay, happy Tuesday. I am Marty Caswell. It is Tuesday, correct? I'm Marty Caswell here on Marty Time TV. It is an absolute pleasure to be joined by AJ Cassavell here. And we're brought to you by the all new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. AJ, there are times when you're looking for any sort of storyline when it comes to the Padres. Yesterday, really since the season began, I think we almost had too many storylines. Where do you even start with these 5-0 Padres?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I think the probably the most fun storylines are the ones that, at least from my perspective, like obviously, like Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, those guys being what
Mm-hmm.
they are, like they're guys fans gravitate to. They're superstars, kind of expected from them. I like the Kyle Hart and Gavin Sheets storylines. Those are pretty cool. Like anytime a guy, I'm not a big pitcher wins guy, but first career MLB wins is still a really, really cool thing. So for him to get it after 5 years out of the major leagues, that's just awesome. And then Gavin Sheets, for him to kind of have gone through what he went through the last 2 or 3 years with the White Sox, really struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and comes to the Padres, makes some changes. I think like when they first met and talked to each other, like they had some concepts with what they were going to do with his swing, and he was like, all right, that seems like it might work for me. And like not only is it working, but he's mashing through 5 games. So like those are the fun storylines for me. Who knows how long they last? It's a long
Right.
season. 5-0. There have been 5-0 teams that have missed the playoffs, but the Padres have never done it before. So it'll be interesting to see where things go from here.
It's so funny. I mean, our very first conversation leading up to the season was about the starting pitching. And again, so you mentioned small sample size. It's just funny that the two starters, Michael King and Dylan Cease, are the ones that perhaps struggled early on. Absolute brilliant dominance by Nick Pivetta. And then Randy Vasquez, a nice pleasant surprise too, considering some of his struggles in spring training.
Yeah, Nick Pivetta was like really good. The like the combination of like dominance with efficiency was impressive.
Mm.
I brought up the comparison to like kind of what Joe Musgrove was in 2021 when he came over to the Padres, because Musgrove like clearly had the stuff to be kind of to ascend into that frontline starter kind of status. He had never put together an ERA below 4 in a full big league season. Neither has Pivetta, but you look at it and the stuff is clearly there to do that. And so it's only one start. He's off to probably the best start he could have possibly imagined. He's got a long way to go before he ascends to like that front of the rotation guy. But I think when the Padres signed him, what it did was it kind of secured the depth in the rotation. Like this was a rotate,
Okay.
like the rotation needed depth, and he was the fourth starter. He was the guy, but they signed him with the idea of him being more than just that. I think there was a pretty clear concept where Nick Pivetta could ascend into like kind of the way we've seen some guys ascend under Ruben Niebla before, like Michael King
Mhm.
last season or other guys in the past.
I'm gonna confess right now that last night in Padres post game, I stole one of your storylines because you and I've had casual conversations about all these former White Sox players that come to the Padres and are thriving. It's easy to go ahead and start with Tatis and the superstar that he is. Dylan Cease is another one. Then of course Gavin Sheets. What is it about the Padres and these ex White Sox players? And perhaps they should go ahead and look more into that farm system and see what they can grab
Yeah,
there.
I think they've got a couple others too, and like obviously none of those guys are having as good a season as what Cease or what Sheets is doing or what Cease did last year. But like
Yeah.
they picked Martin Maldonado away and Ron
Mhm.
Marinaccio, guys that like weren't really good on the White Sox, but I think that the Padres think could really help them, which I think shows you like that's kind of just what like there's a hierarchy of good organizations in
Yes.
the major leagues, and I think I don't know. We saw with the Padres, we've been around forever. Like the 2016 Padres had guys go elsewhere, and then they got
Yes.
better, and it frustrated a lot of fans because well, why didn't the Padres keep them? Well, I think a big part of it is what the organization has to offer those guys in terms of improvements they can make or things they can harness to make themselves better. And at this point, the Padres look like one of those teams where you come to the Padres and you can get better. You can become you can you can make the swing changes that Gavin Sheets has made, and you can do some of the things Dylan Cease did last year. Like he was last season, Dylan Cease's final season with the White Sox, he was
Yes.
still dominant at times, but his ERA wasn't good. He didn't put together a really good full season.
Mhm.
But he got to the middle of last season with the Padres. He was struggling a little bit, and I think they just made some very simple mechanical tweaks, and all of a sudden he was an ace again. And so I think that's kind of the thing with it's a fun storyline for it to be the Padres
Yes.
plucking these guys from the White Sox and then being all really good. But it's more just like the Padres have things to offer to guys who are at a point in their careers where they maybe need to make improvements, and the Padres can help them get there.
So what changed? Is it as simple as saying it's Victor Rodriguez, it's Ruben Niebla? Because when you're talking about players who perhaps underwhelmed in other organizations and they come to San Diego and have success, that used to be something that used to bug the Padres fans because the opposite used to happen. You might have an underperforming player with San Diego go somewhere else and then develops. So what changed, in your opinion, for the Padres?
It's the hires, and now it's not just Ruben Niebla, Victor Rodriguez.
Sure.
Like those are probably the two biggest ones because they had the two sides of like what the Padres are trying to develop. But it goes down on through like pretty much the whole entire organization. They've hired some of the right sports science guys. I think that's I'll have to do some more digging into the specifics of Gavin Sheets' changes, but like they basically got him in the performance lab and took some metrics on his swings and said, hey, like these are some of the things based on that, like they've good analytical data. And I think they also have the right communicators of that data for the players. And that's, to me, like Victor Rodriguez and Ruben Niebla are both really smart people.
Yes.
They're also really good at communicating complex concepts to the likes of myself when I ask about it, because they're not necessarily things that I understand, but they're also good at, like from what I understand, really good at communicating to the players themselves and what they need to do. It can be hard to kind of take all the numbers and data and what needs to happen, and like both those guys do a great job of it, and I think the rest of the staff does too. I think that it's kind of the whole organization on down.
Again, it's going to be a small sample size, and I'm looking at yesterday's game, and it's been through 5 games. If I were to ask AJ Preller, what's been your favorite game of this season, I think he might point to yesterday, not just because of the Kyle Hart, his first win coming from the KBO, but also the contributions they got from the bench, or not from the bench, but some role players, including you mentioned Gavin Sheets, Jason Hayward with his first hit and RBI for a Padre. Do the Padres? How would you compare this bench depth to what they had last season with guys like Peralta and Solano that contributed?
Yeah, I think 6 days ago I would have said not favorably, and I still think last year's team was deeper. I still look at Donovan Solano, and then like David Peralta obviously brought a lot too. Maybe the Padres can get that kind of production from those guys. Obviously, I think they were in a little better shape at catcher.
Yes,
but they do have the one thing that's kind of unique and solid about this bench is like it has a good blend of pieces. It has the pieces, like the different pieces that you need. So I guess that's what I would say about what this bench is. There's still question marks. It's only 5 games. Like the bottom of the lineup / the bench is not just solved because the Padres are 5-0.
right.
They played extremely well. Like Yuli Gurriel coming off the bench, getting that big hit on Saturday. Gavin Sheets doing what he's done. Like that is seems like a really solid platoon. Like whereas if you had one of those guys and said go start 162, you might not get the results. So like there's clearly good things to latch onto, but I do kind of need to see it play out more and see maybe where some of the areas of weakness are, because like the Padres did lose some guys in the offseason, and there are question marks. And so 5 wins doesn't solve all of that.
We've yet to see, I think, Iglesias, and I'm so sorry. In my head, I want to call him Enrique. I realize it's Jose, but what sort of role do the Padres see for him?
I think he's similar in the Solano role. If I had to guess, like it's a similar offensive profile, and he can hit his way into whatever role he wants, basically. Like there's not going to be a ton of opportunity in the infield, but there is that DH spot, and like Gavin Sheets has kind of seized hold of that right now. But if Iglesias hits, he could work his way into more playing time. There was also some questions about whether Jake Cronenworth and Iglesias could be a platoon, because Cronenworth had struggled against lefties. Cronenworth obviously had that big home run the other night against a tough left-hander. And then after the game, we kind of all asked him about, like, that's impressive, like against the left-hander after what last season was. And Cronenworth basically deflected that by being like, yeah, I know, but like, look at the rest of my career aside from last season. And he was
Right.
fine against lefties. And so maybe he can kind of rekindle that and there's no need for a platoon. So long way of saying, I think Iglesias is like a useful depth piece to have. And you saw it when Manny Machado went out with that calf thing the other night. Like he comes in and he just felt like if anything like that happens, and there's 4 guys on the infield that anything could happen to at any moment. They're all like the Padres starting infield is set, but you never know what's going to happen. Like you've got a very viable replacement in Jose Iglesias and a guy who did some really good things with the Mets last season.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned the Manny Machado, the calf situation that happened on Saturday night when he left that game. Purely precautionary, which we saw because he was back in the lineup yesterday. Can you just speak to what you saw yesterday? I know yesterday in postgame, Mike Schilt talked about his baseball IQ and raved about how unique that play was in the 8th inning. I think it was the 8th inning.
Yeah, it's unique, but it's also like not that unique for Manny Machado because he does that all the time. He does like he did that in the NLDS last year. We're getting into the running lane. He just kind of thinks the game like in those moments where like stuff happens really fast. Like baseball, like it can be slow pitch to pitch, but within the moment it happens really fast, and there's not a lot of time to think about what's going on. And the guys on that infield, I would say Machado and Cronenworth specifically, like just do such a good job of thinking through situations. Because I don't know that they would have gotten that double play. But if Manny Machado is not kind of in the running lane and making himself interfered with, which he was interfered with, it's the right call, like then that might not be a double play, but he knows all that. And that's hard to figure out like in the split second that it's happening.
I do want to get into just what happened yesterday, what broke in the Padres clubhouse. It was just a little bit surreal yesterday. Very newsy day, but I have a question from Taco Bell call 911. AJ, what's your pick for underdog player no one is talking about on this team? I feel like we're talking about everybody on this team, and I don't know you can call Gavin Sheets an underdog anymore because he's become a superstar with a Holy Sheets chant, which was a lot of fun yesterday. But what is your pick for underdog player on this Padres team?
Yeah, I don't think Gavin Sheets is allowed now that he has a chant. I would also have said Nick Pivetta probably before what he did. I still think that's a fair, reasonable answer because he's never had an ERA below 4, but he just seems like the kind of guy that would slot right into this rotation and like make some of the adjustments that we talked about that Ruben Diablo can help pitchers make. And he's also just got nasty stuff, and he's never been able to harness it and put it all together. So I guess I'll take Nick Pivetta. If we want to go like even further off the map in terms of an underdog guy, I think Adrian Morejon is like takes the next step. Like he established himself last year as a really good reliever, but they were interested in finding another top end lefty reliever this offseason, but I think also not that interested because they knew like it wasn't a necessity because they knew Adrian Morejon could kind of be that guy. So I'll like those two, Pivetta and Morejon are guys that I expect pretty good seasons from.
The bullpen has been outstanding thus far. Another guy who's been stepping up has been Yuki Matsui. What has been the difference in his mechanics for this season? What have you noticed?
Yeah, it's only been a few starts, or a few outings, and he kind of started to look solid at the end of last season, and then like the Padres just had so many good relievers in their bullpen at the end of last season that like he just didn't have innings, and I think he might have shown some of that progress last year had there been more opportunity for him. I think he's just like maybe a little more comfortable. Like his stuff is pretty nasty. It's different. It's unique. He's got that splitter coming from the left side, which not a lot of guys have faced. And so like I think that's another guy where if Morejon is their primary, like a year ago, Morejon was their number 2 lefty and Yuki Matsui was like number 3 or 4 lefty. Like the Padres didn't go after that lefty because I think they believe in those two guys' stuff. They believe that Morejon can be that top end guy. And then I think they believe that Yuki Matsui and maybe even Wander Peralta can be those kind of next tier left-handed guys, the middle innings lefties. They could have gone out and found someone else and they didn't. And that was maybe a product of not being able to find the right fit, but also I think a product of the fact that they're happy with Yuki Matsui and what he has to offer.
I want to go ahead and take the Padres fans kind of inside the clubhouse yesterday. We were walking in yesterday, and then the news started trickling down about Jurickson Profar. And it was very, very strange inside there because you saw some guys huddled by their lockers and then they disappeared, and then nobody was available afterwards. I know Mike Schultz spoke about Jurickson Profar suspension, saying I love him now as much as I did an hour ago, and nothing's going to change there. How surprised were you to hear the news yesterday on Jurickson Profar being suspended 2 days after he leaves San Diego, essentially, or 1 day?
Yeah, it really sucks because it was last year. It was such a cool story to see what he did, and it was like a really fun story, and that's it's now kind of a crappy story. Like this is a part of that story. It's a part of what he did last season. Even though he was tested last season, and this test reportedly came down during the off season, like it's just still kind of a stain on what that was, and so it's really crappy. I think the Padres are like kind of processing it in real time yesterday, as we all found out too. So like especially having most of them had just seen Profar over the weekend. We're very excited to have seen him and to see him there. So I think we're all kind of processing it at the same time after the news came down, which was like you said, a little bit surreal. But I think, I mean, in the big picture, like what it does is it takes what Profar accomplished last season and which was really impressive and really fun, and just makes there's a stain on those accomplishments from what last year was.
There is. It does. It casts a lot of doubt on what he was able to do last season, his first All-Star season, helping to, I mean, really one of the primary MVPs on that team. And the thing that I found ironic, and I think a listener actually retweeted a video that I posted a couple of years ago, when Fernando Tatis was suspended, a couple of years ago, I remember that, we talked to Profar about it. Jurickson Profar was talking to Fernando Tatis every single day. And now it's going to be reversed. This is what Fernando had to say yesterday about this.
Man, I'm here for him, and everybody knows the rules.
Sorry.
So everybody knows, the process, and we just need to follow this process, and it's part of it.
He was so supportive of you in your situation. So it's doubly hard to hear that was happening to someone like him.
Yeah, of course. Especially coming from me, I know the process. I know, how your mind can turn against you, and what all the people that doesn't really know what goes on in here and talks about, but. I tell him, everybody that knows him and everybody has seen him play the game for more than 11 years, are really behind his back, and it's a process, and I'm here for him.
Did you talk to him or reach out yesterday?
Yeah. We keep talking on a daily basis. Doesn't need to be about that, but man, like I said, I'm here for him.
So that was Fernando Tatis yesterday in a rather joyous clubhouse, but a very somber tone to start yesterday's Game of News on Profar. All right, moving on to further things from Monty Holden. Can Sheets play left field? If you're the Padres, you're looking for any possible way to go ahead and keep that bat in the lineup, right?
Yeah, I think he can. I don't think he can necessarily play it well. I think Jason Hayward's played a pretty solid left field. Like Gavin Sheets is a masher, and he's more of a first baseman than a left fielder. I think the answer is yes, but I don't think that's a thing that this Padres necessarily need, because then who are you putting at DH in that spot? Like Iglesias against righties, maybe. I think in a pinch, absolutely, that could be something that we see come up this summer. It could be something like if they're looking to make some sort of move at the deadline, that maybe that happens more often. It could be something that becomes a necessity sooner rather than later. I think Hayward's had some better at-bats recently, but if Hayward doesn't start hitting, like who knows what it's going to be. But right now the Padres are more than content keeping Sheets where he is at DH, Hayward in left, and getting the production they've gotten offensively out of Sheets and defensively out of Hayward.
AJ, I'm not sure. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the Padres players about Torpedo bats, which seems to be taking the baseball world by storm? And who's going to be who is most likely to use it?
I don't know. I talked to Xander Bogaerts about it a little bit, and he was just kind of blown away by the concept. And he said, well, like, I wouldn't, like, I was like, so you would never try it, would you? He's like, well, I would maybe try everything. Brandon Lockridge has already tried it for an extensive period of time during spring training when he was with the Yankees.
Okay.
He was there for the whole presentation of what they were going to be. He knows the guy, Lenny, who basically invented them. So he has, like, I think the most fascinating insight. He said he just, like, couldn't bring him, and he understands the process and the thought and like the numbers behind it. He said he couldn't bring himself to use it in like regular season games because he's so comfortable using the bat he's used. It's really weird. I think we're still learning like what the actual effect of it is. I think part of it's probably inflated by the fact that Aaron Judge, who is not using those bats, is hitting like 2 home runs, 3 home runs every day.
Yes.
And so the Yankees home run totals look higher than what they are. I guess like it'll be interesting to see like the effect that they have and whether other teams start using them. I think it's also dependent on certain players. Like there's one guy I talked to the other day who was like, well, I'm going to go look at what my contact data is, like where I make contact with the ball. And I don't think that will have any bearing on like changing bats. I think the bat I'm using is the right one. So I think it's a super interesting concept. It's not like the reason the Yankees are hitting 9 home runs in a game against the Brewers. Some of those pitches were meatballs. Some of those hitters are really good. Like
Yes.
It's Yankee Stadium, the short porch. But it's it's fascinating. It's really, really interesting.
It really is. Hey, AJ, are you going to be on this road trip? Wrigley Field, and then this sounds so strange, Sacramento.
Yes, I will be on both
Really?
legs of the trip. Wrigley Field opening day is something I'm really looking forward to because
That's going to be awesome.
I love that ballpark. And then I will, I guess, check another ballpark off my list in Sacramento. That is, I was looking the other day. I think I've seen Major League games in 37 different stadiums if you count previous stadiums, or that will be number 37. So that's pretty cool.
Well, look out for that one, because if I saw the someone tweeted out a picture of the accommodations for the press room, and I think that you're going to be in a shed for all the Mike Schilt pre and post. So buckle up for that. It's a tiny little ballpark. At least you won't be hitting some serious weather yet. And apparently the Wi-Fi sucks. So Sacramento seems terrible. Relocation is awful. I feel so bad for A's fans having to deal with this. Just terrible. But Wrigley Field, where's your spot? When you go to Wrigley Field, I mean, I guess there's no one spot, but is there a place that you have to go every single time?
I think it's Murphy's.
Yes.
The bar out by right field. I guess my Wrigley Field story is this. Like one of the reasons I fell in love with it was one of the first seasons I was on the beat when the Padres were out of playoff contention. Like we'll help out other teams in their playoff contention. So I was helping out on a Cubs series, and the Cubs had played one of those late games for TV. It started at like 9:00, and the game went long. It ended at like 12:30, and then we all got finished writing at like 2:30 or 3, and we were like, "Oh man, where are we gonna too bad. We're not gonna be able to find anywhere." And we went out. It was the middle of the week.
Yeah,
but the Cubs had won a playoff game. Everything was still packed. We could still go out and get a beer and have a good time, and like it's just a great vibe there. Looking forward to being back there for opening day. Not necessarily looking forward for the weather. I've heard it's going to be frigid temperatures, but that'll be really fun.
What's the beer of choice? If you have time, I know you're very, very busy. It's all work. But if you have time for play, what's the beer? What's the beer in Chicago?
That's a good question. I'm not like Chicago's not. I mean, I'm fine. I have nothing against Chicago. It's just not like one that I know. Like I guess I don't go there every season necessarily. I can tell you my NL West whatever's, but Gumball Head, I think it's called. It's like a weedy pale ale. I don't know this Gumball. I think it's called Gumball Head. It's a good beer. It's
okay.
I think it's called a wheat beer, but it's not. Gumball Head. 3 Floyds.
Okay. I'm gonna look this up, and if you happen to have room in your carry-on, please bring some Gumball Head back for some of your favorite press box companions. It would be greatly appreciated. Sacramento, I'm good. I don't need anything from Sacramento. But AJ, thank you for the time, and I really, really appreciate this. Great talk. Great catching up with you.
Yeah, always happy to come on, Marty. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, AJ. Take care. That was AJ Cassavell from MLB.com. Before we go, I do want to go ahead and take you back inside the Padres clubhouse yesterday. Here, I want to show you Manny Machado talking about the Gavin Sheets chant and, of course, his reaction to the Profar news. Here's Manny Machado from last night. Holy Sheets chants.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. What I love more is 43,000 on a Monday night. Wow. Incredible, San Diego. You guys never seem to, it's just impressive. It's impressive.
What are you seeing from Gavin right now, just watching him in the box?
He's locked in, man. He's staying to his approach. He's staying, within himself and knows what what the job is. He's pretty hot right now, so hopefully he continues. And I know that I see the work that he puts into it, and I saw the work he did in spring training as well to get back here. And it's always good to have a fresh start in a team like this to go out there, and we know what type of player he is.
And I know this for the games. How tough is to hear the news on Jurickson?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a tough one to swallow, right? And it just sucks to hear it. And Profar is always going to be my best friend, and going to support him no matter what, and be right by his side on this tough journey he's going to be on.
Thank you. So that was Manny Machado from yesterday. You can find the full interview, also talking about his incredible double play at third base, talking about his health, his stolen bases. You can find the full interview at Marty Time TV. The same thing for Fernando Tatis. Tatis talked about you have to appreciate the one-of-a-kind player that Manny Machado is. He also talked about Jurickson Profar, their relationship, and how he's going to support him. But before we go ahead and sign off for today, I do want to leave you with the feel-good story from yesterday, and that's going to be Kyle Hart getting his first MLB win 5 years later, back in the U.S., of course, played in the KBO last season. But this is Kyle Hart from last night, just talking about his first big league win.
At any other time?
No, I'm not. I'm not. So who are the other ones?
I think there's 23 of them.
23,
There's 24.
okay.
Now it's
Yeah.
23. To get this opportunity, I know you said focused on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, it's been 5 years. Most guys, you hear guys maybe 2 years or 3 years since they've been in the big leagues, but 5 years, it's almost like, oh, those guys are gone, right? But so I'll give myself credit. I worked really hard and had some success, but so many good people around me. And then once I got here, I'm like, yeah, this is the spot for me. I mean, this clubhouse they lift you up. Every single one of these guys. So.
When you dreamed of getting your first major league win, of making you come back in the U.S., is this exactly what you envisioned?
This would probably be better. This would probably be better than anything I imagined. Yeah, especially at Petco against Cleveland. Cleveland, Cincinnati. I'm not the biggest Cleveland sports fan, so anytime you can beat Cleveland is good as a Cincinnatian. So.
What did this feel like from start to finish? Just, running out with your teammates, starting lineups, the first batter, the adulation of the crowd.
Yeah.
Am I even still here? Who knows?
It felt amazing. Like I said, I felt like the crowd was out there on the mound with me, if that makes any sense at all. When I saw Toddy slide and catch that ball in the fifth, I was just like, I was kind of beside myself. I knew that was probably it, given 2, 3, 4 all righties coming up. Just an amazing feeling. Yeah, one I'll never forget.
How's your family taking on this one?
I haven't talked to them yet. So I've gotten some texts, but looking forward to catching up with them.
Apologize if this has been asked. And
that's all right.
This is maybe asking to look back again, but you dealt with Lyme disease in 2020. How much, looking back, did that affect you just coming up to the majors?
I think it affected me a lot. In the moment in 2020, I probably was downplaying a little bit, but just trying to be a competitor, trying to go out and help at that time the Red Sox win. And, it was a big deal, just physically, mentally, all that. I just didn't quite have enough time to build myself back up before I started to try to pitch. So.
All right, so that was Kyle Hart for last night. If you want the full interview, again, you can find that at Marty Time TV. Listen, thank you guys so much for watching the show. 2 straight days. Bob Scanlon was on yesterday. Yesterday was a really eventful day at Petco Park. 5 straight wins is awesome, of course. The Profar news was something, but listen, great. I'm happy for Kyle Hart, and the Holy Sheets chant is here to stay. I hope you all enjoyed your Jackson Merrill bobblehead from last night. I apologize for my tech difficulties. I'm still working on some things, including a ring light. This is what I have for my light. It's a Snow White makeup mirror that somebody gave me. So I'm working on improving. I need better light. I need a better backdrop, but I appreciate you all. I look forward to checking in with you tomorrow. Padres play tonight. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. And thanks, AJ. Thanks, AJ Cassavell. I appreciate you.